Warning: the following program may contain material not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Find a depth unknown, a voice begins to rise, breaking through the noise with fire in its eyes. The spirit of adventure burning ever bright. Hold on tight, travelers, it's gonna be alright. Another week burning, halfway to the end. Bonus Overdrive Wednesday, let the tears descend. Bonus Overdrive Wednesday, night is here. Shatter the silence, conquer all your fear. Bonus Overdrive, the angels gonna scream. With Diego at the wheel, living on a dream.
It's time to find out with Diego. Let's go. Ooh, yeah.
On this episode of Bonus Overdrive Wednesday, Lawrence C. Connolly is an acclaimed author of horror, science fiction, and fantasy, with works adapted into film and stage plays, including a new play on Edgar Allan Poe premiering this November. Christopher Connolly developed the intellectual property for Minutemen, an action franchise about commandos with short-lived superpowers, which is also the basis for the new novel, Minutemen, Execute and Run. He's also produced work for Fortune 500 companies and for the world's top designers and performers. All this plus more. Please welcome first-time guests and new friends, Lawrence and Christopher Connolly. My friends, welcome to Bonus Overdrive Wednesday.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Diego.
Thank you, Diego.
Hey, I'm happy you're both here. And as I said earlier, I was reading through the bio. My word, I mean, if we can, it'd probably take days to go over your illustrious careers, all the projects, novels, plays, and films. It's awesome. I say, talk about reaching for the stars. You guys pretty much grabbed all of them. And so we're going to go back in time a little bit to see how this all began. And so for the listeners of Let's Find Out, before we begin, could you both introduce yourselves and what it is that you brought to the Minutemen project?
Yeah, Chris, you got it all. You got the ball rolling. Why don't you start?
Okay, my name's Christopher Connolly, and I've been in marketing and design, pretty much all my life. And I also do love to write. I've kind of to be therapy. But anyway, this project came to me, a while ago. Let me just say before COVID. And so I was developing this project, actually purposely hiding it from Larry, not really showing him. Larry's very accomplished in seasons. He knows what he's doing. He's been around for quite a while. I thought I'm going to show him a project that gets developed. It's going to be a pretty cool project. But once he caught wind of it, he asked if I'd share it, and I did. And I shared the first time was a conversation we had. He looked at the first pitch that I actually used in Los Angeles when I met with some of the producers and things. And Larry, I was very humbled by it because I don't know why I was hiding it from him. He said, "This is phenomenal, Chris. This is lightning in the bottle. Do you mind if I ask if I can get involved?" And I was so pleased. I absolutely said in the instant, yes. I need him, honestly. I needed him. So this is how this all started. The project was something that came out of just the marketing and the thought of doing something, writing a story that people can escape with. And I thought I was doing something that is definitely going to happen. And I thought I could jump right from a graphic novel and have a film produced. But anyway, so Larry jumped on, and you can tell the story from there, Larry, that's how you put the screenplay together and rewrote the novel.
Yeah, that's Chris is an artist, and as he was working on this before I got involved, he created this portfolio of images of characters, and each character had a bio. And then the bio plugged into a concept, and it was the Minuteman concept. And the concept was simply that these characters begin as wounded warriors. They come back from some of the most dangerous places on Earth, and they come back hurt and maimed, and they become forgotten until someone in the biotech industry recruits them for this new procedure that should give them their lives back, but it also creates within them this superpower. Each one has a very special superpower that, in an interesting way, is related to how they were maimed and disabled when they were working in the most dangerous places on Earth. And yet, here's the one thing. This is where science fiction and comic books diverge, because in a comic book, you can have a guy like Superman and he can do anything. He can fly and he can use his X-ray vision, and he never gets tired. But he's an alien. He's not a human. Humans get tired. If a human had those kind of superpowers, that person would burn out fast. And so that's where the title comes from, Minutemen. These characters have only about 60 seconds to use their powers, and then they are completely incapacitated. They are less than useful when they're behind enemy lines, and they need to be protected by the other people on the team. And so this team of commandos must learn to rely on one another, not only to complete the task and to know when to use their superpowers, but also so that they can each watch out for the other and get everyone out alive. And so Chris spread all of these pictures out on a table, on a bistro table at a coffee house back in 2018. And I looked at this. We talked a little bit about it, and I said, I've got to be involved in this. I really want to write this screenplay. And I did write the screenplay, and Chris and I both went out to LA. I had a film opening in LA at Nightmare Cinema, which I co-wrote with people like Mick Garris and David Slade and Richard Christian Matheson and Sarah Bussarell. And we were there for the opening, but I also took along this screenplay that I wrote based on this concept. And Chris and I shopped it around while we were there in LA. And things went so well that afterward, Chris moved out to LA to continue to work on moving the project forward. We'd hoped the film would be made by now, but COVID came along, and then the writer's strike, and then the fires. And we've got this great picture of off of Chris's balcony of the LA fires. They came within a few blocks of his house. But now that all of this stuff is past, and I have written the novel, I wrote the novel in the downtime, we're hoping that things really begin to take off. And the first step toward taking off is October 14th, when the novel comes out. And we hope the film falls into place shortly thereafter. So that's our story.
I mean, it's a fantastic story. And as you're talking, I'm thinking back when I was younger, because I was a big, still am, Batman fan. And I really like DC Comics, Marvel to a lesser extent. And there was these other ones out there too, independent comic book companies. One thing for me, and you touched on it, where we're touching on Superman or other beings that had superpowers, it almost, and I know Superman was more of an alien, but it almost lost a human touch of it, where I prefer a Batman where he had to really rely on his detective skills and his training and his fighting techniques in order to, I guess, solve crimes or fight villains. With these characters in your novel having these short-lived superpowers, how is it that then, how do they get these, without giving the spoilers, how do they get these short-term superpowers, and what kind of predicaments can they get in? 'Cause saying they're battling an alien and the powers zap out that moment, it kind of puts them in a pretty dicey predicament.
Well, they do come back from war, and as Larry stated, each one of them have their own special qualities to them. I mean, they know what they know how to do, and they're very well trained. They come back though from war. They're all affected by war, and they come back broken. Now, the thing about the story that I originally had thought of was that Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, all these films are being remade. They're from many years ago. I thought from day one, let's create a whole new franchise, a whole new legacy project, something that I hope lives on beyond both of us. And the thing about the 60 seconds, I don't want to go in too far and give too much away, but they go through a procedure, and it's based on science and reality to a certain point. It's a stem cell nanotech. I even had written in there at one point cryogenic cocktail that they go through. And the purpose of what the story is about the side effects and how they have to now live with this new reality and find their way through this, navigate their way. But they can't do it alone. They have to do it as a team. They also have to do it with the researchers that developed the cocktail. It was a way of giving them, in the beginning, it was a way of them getting their lives back from the government doing a good thing. The 60 seconds is something that, who knows? Can they control this? Will they be able to get more time? Will they not? It's such an infancy of their world right now. They don't understand what's going on. They've got to, as I say, learn to deal with a new reality. You take it from there, Larry.
Yeah, as you can imagine, when these strange powers begin to crop up, there are going to be forces in this world that really want to control that. They want to look into that. And when the characters in the book realize that they are on the verge of being conscripted into this other study, into this arm of corporate military that they did not plan on getting involved with, they decide to go rogue. And this notion of going rogue was very early in the conversations that Chris and I had, and very important to the story. So in Minutemen Execute and Run, the novel, we see them being rehabilitated through the procedure. And then in the second half of the book, they go underground, they go rogue, they try to get away, and they try to fight back against the people who want to control them. And as they are doing this, they are gradually beginning to discover the powers that they have. You see, these powers are mysterious, and the people who want to control them would like to understand those powers. And the people who have them would also like to understand those powers. So they're out there in the field, and they are using them as they need to get by, and they are gradually discovering what they can do. But the flip side of it is that these forces that want to own them, they are also watching them. And we begin to wonder as the book progresses, is this somehow planned? Were they supposed to go rogue so that they can be studied in the field? And again, I don't want to give too much away, but to answer your question, the characters in the book don't yet fully understand the powers, how they came to be, and how they can be controlled. But I will tell you this, when Chris first pitched this to me, he had a lot of this all worked out. He'd really thought about this. So we're using this technique that science fiction writers use called incluing, putting clues into the novel to let the reader know what the characters are finding out about how their superpowers work. And through the process of including over the course of the novel, and we hope over a series of novels, we will begin to delineate exactly how this power originated and how it works within the human body.
And if you were to go back in time to times where I think we're both around the same era where we grew up in the age of superheroes, different decades brought you different characters, but different storylines to the same characters. What were some of your favorite ones growing up?
Oh, yeah. Well, I started off really liking the DC comics and Superman and Batman, certainly. I think the first comic I bought was a Hawkman comic. And I really thought the DC universe was terrific. Now, this was quite a while ago. I mean, we're talking about the 60s when I got into reading comics. Now, here's an interesting story that you and your readers might like to know. I did own the first Fantastic Four, and I wish I still had that comic right now. But I didn't think that the Fantastic Four was quite as good as DC. What did I know? I was a kid. But Marvel had a different feel to it. Marvel was a bit more sophisticated, so it had a different cerebral feel to it. But Marvel, back in the day, had a different touch feel to it. When you picked up a Marvel comic, you were holding a Marvel comic. The printing was different. The paper was different. It just felt different. It smelled different. and I just it just didn't work for me as well. The whole comic experience didn't work for me, so I was very much into DC. Now, here's the story that I think your readers will enjoy. One of my friends lived a couple blocks away. He said, "I've got some comic books. As a matter of fact, I've got a lot of comic books. I've got cases and cases of comic books. And my mom says I have to get rid of them. Do you want them?" And I said, "Yeah, I want them." So I went over to his house, and I looked in the cases, and he's got a complete run of Spider-Man. He's got a complete run of Fantastic Four. He's got a complete run of X-Men. He's got everything from the beginning when Stan Lee first launched all these superheroes right up into where things were about 1968. Isn't that great? And I looked in those cases. I said, nah, it's Marvel. I don't want it. Oh, man. If I had a time machine, I would go back and I would scoop those babies up. And I would also stop my mom from throwing out that Fantastic Four. But
and that's what I tell everyone about the book, friends. I say, get the book, because how can you? I know where this is going to go. This is gonna be a great project for years, and this is something to have. The first original Superman novel or the comic book would be something. To have something from our swag store would be something. It will be a collector's item.
Yeah, you're saying
I
that.
got a dream.
Get this first edition of Minutemen Execute and Run, because it's going to be the same thing. Someday, some kid is going to go over to his friend's house and say, I have all these superhero books. Would you like them? And the friend will go over to his house and open up the case and see, oh, it's all the Minuteman books by Lawrence Connolly and Christopher Connolly. Oh, no, wait, I don't want those.
Something I didn't tell you, Larry. A friend said to me yesterday, I'm buying two. I'm not going to crack the one. I'm putting it away. And I thought, my brother used to do that with comic books. So, yeah, listen. Wouldn't you love to have the first edition of Superman right now? Yeah. So this may not be in their. It might be in their the grandchild's, keepsake. But yeah, it's gonna be something. I say go out and get it.
It would be a worthwhile investment for sure. Now, and I know you've probably been asked this question 1,000 times. This might be 1,001. If you had that 60 seconds of having a superpower, which one would you choose?
Yeah, which one? In the book, the characters at the moment in the first book that's coming out, the characters have one of the characters has this ability to remember everything, and he had some brain head trauma when he was in special forces, and so one of his problems as he was being rehabilitated was being able to think straight, was being able to think through this incredible neuropathic pain that he had constantly in his head. And when he gets treated, not only does that pain go away, but he has the ability to have total recall. He can remember everything he has ever heard. And he is also able to see everything in front of him. Now, when we look at the world around us and we look at people around us, we only see a fraction of what's going on. This guy has the ability to really notice everything. And so when he's talking to someone, he can notice the micro expressions in a person's face. And as a result, he can almost read their minds. And since he can almost read their minds, he can work them over with his words. He can say the very things that will make them bend to his will. That would be one cool thing to have. I would love to have that total recall. I'd love to know what I had for lunch on September 4th, 1971. Wouldn't that be cool to know that? I would love to be able to do that. And I'd love to be able to look at people and be able to read their minds and know what I needed to say in order to get them to do my will. And if I could do that, Chris and I would be going all through LA, pitching all these movie projects, and we'd be landing every single deal. That's what we would do. But anyhow, that's my pick. That's the one I would take.
And the fun thing about this, when they do use their powers, as you were saying before, Diego, about Batman versus Superman, I mean, they are affected. They are, depleted and wounded, and they can be harmed. But they've got to be very careful how and when and what they're doing with their abilities right now. So it's going to be an interesting ride to see how this all unfolds and watch how they develop more into their their ability and how they can begin to control it. And to keep in mind, out of the ensemble of the four characters that are considered Minutemen, the two military guys and the two female players. There is the researcher, the young, brilliant scientist that Jamie Valentine. She is brought in under Norman Blackwell's, guidance, and her superpower is just, well, she's beautiful, but it's her intelligence. And I always like that little twist. Every one of them have superhuman abilities, but hers is just being a powerful, bright, intelligent female.
Yeah, she's kind of like Batman, isn't she?
Yeah, exactly. And she's the one that has to help these four go rogue, go underground to a certain extent, if you might say, because they are being considered, as this thing unfolds, as enemies of the state. But all they're doing is trying to protect themselves from being studied, and from the funder, the person that's developing this and funding it. They're trying to. He's trying to develop this into a militia of an army, possibly, and so you'll see how this unfolds as well.
Excellent. And as I was thinking about what superpower I would have had you asked me that question when I was a younger person, I would have said flight. But then, being the young kid, I would forget how long 60 seconds would be. I would probably just fall to my demise. So I think I would if I could combine speed and strength for me, I could knock out a 2-hour workout at the gym in 60 seconds to be done.
Well, 60 seconds is quite a long time when you really think about it. I used to, when I was writing this original, I used to sit and time fight scenes in films, and you saw some go way too long and just not reality. And others, some of them don't go that long. I mean, and you understand. And so when you take the 60 seconds multiplied by 4 times 4, you stretch this out. You're helping each other. These are 4 individuals that are vulnerable, and they've got to come together and work together. As Larry once, I think I said it in the coffee place. I said that's their kryptonite. That is their issue, the time element.
And when you were shopping around this script or the screenplay for Minutemen, and hopefully put in a film adaptation in the near future, me not knowing how this really works in the entertainment industry, I know it's a lot of work, and you've both been doing this for a very long time. I was going to ask about how the experience of that is, but what are the steps to actually from pen, paper to actually eventually down the road becoming a film?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it really comes down to having something that you're passionate about. So you really have to have something to go out there and pitch. And then I think it comes down to who do you know, and who can you get in contact with. It is so tough to break in, and it takes a lot of time. And so any young writers who are out there who are interested in even just writing a novel and getting it sold, or writing a screenplay and getting it sold, it's just a matter of process and perseverance and taking your time and doing the absolute best work you can, and then getting that work out there. Because when that work gets out there, it's going to be noticed by certain people. And this is how you make contacts. This is how people, when I first got started, I was surprised that some of the stories that I wrote for magazines were getting noticed in LA. And I was getting options for some of those early stories. And once you get an option, you're able to get an agent. And when you get an agent, you're able to get someone who's going to be able to go out there and promote you and get your stuff sold. But it really is a slow process, first of creating something that people are going to want to hear about, and then being able to get it in front of the right people. Now what Chris did, which is really interesting, see if I get this right, Chris, you were put in touch with a producer in LA through a woman who did set design in New York. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so this was a relationship that led to another relationship that led to an invitation to pitch to somebody, and then as a result, and then somebody listened to the pitch and liked it. So, I mean, Chris, is there more to tell about that story? Maybe we should hear it from you.
Well, the cool thing is, it is like Larry said in the beginning. It does rely a lot on who you know. There's no doubt. I mean, I believe I'm very passionate about the project. I know we've got something solid here, and it keeps getting better. And the layers of the peeling back the onion. We've got so much we want to do with this in different platforms too: gaming, novel, graphic novel, film, TV, animation series, all these things, and they're all being worked. And then as well, the merchandise, the merch. But so. And now that I'm here in Los Angeles, I'm learning very quickly that there's so many people doing the same thing and looking for the funding and backers. I jumped out here because we thought we had that part taken care of. But when I did have the meeting set up, there were several meetings that I thought I'd be lucky if I got 10 minutes with each of them. That day, Larry was on a flight going back to the East Coast, and I remember that morning thinking, sitting by the pool, what am I doing? Am I going to get 10 minutes with these people? I'm going to tell you, Diego, I had 2.5 hours with the first meeting and probably 3 hours with the second meeting. And these guys were engaged, leaning forward. They wanted to hear more. But before I even left, I had to leave early the second meeting because, well, I had to leave when I had to leave because I had to catch a flight. But they were trying to reassure me, we're doing this, Chris. We're going to sign with you. So it did take another trip out here with them, and we talked it over some more. They just kept reassuring me that they're on board. So it's and all the delays we run into are frustrating to me because I've been working on this a long time. Now Larry's got quite a bit of time on it with me now too. But keep in mind, this was my dream, rather big dream. But if you're going to dream, you got to dream big, right? Yes. For years before I introduced Larry, but the thing is, I flew back. I was happy to come back again. They were reassuring us we're going to do this, but it takes time, and we've got to get COVID slowed us down. The fires, as Larry said, slowed us down. But I think there's also something really good about that because it's allowed Larry and I to keep coming back and huddling and that's when Larry, if I'm wrong, you wrote the screenplay first off of this. Then you said, you know what? There's another delay. Let me get started on the novel. Then you had to hesitate too because of the strike, right?
Yeah, that's right. Nobody was working.
And then when that was over, I was frustrated because you weren't working on it. But when that was over, he came back in, dove in, and again, it just keeps getting more to the platform.
Yeah, but of course, I wasn't able to work on the screenplay during the. I could work on the screenplay during the strike, but I couldn't. Talk about
was done before the strike.
Couldn't do anything with it, and of course, I was totally free to write the novel at that time. Yeah, Diego, you're just getting back to this long period of time that it does take, and. When things happen, they happen fast, but there's a lot of gaps between the times when things are happening and when they're not happening. And Chris just alluded to them there when we had COVID and we had the strike and we had the fires. Things just aren't happening. But then when things pick up again, they happen fast. I did a story for an anthology back in 1993, and it was called Traumatic Descent. The story was called Traumatic Descent. And I really liked the story. I thought it was going to be make a lot of noise when it came out, but it was released. It got a few reviews, but nobody really seemed to pick up on it. And then about 7 years later, it was 2000, I get an email from a couple of guys in England, and one of them is Charlie Cantor, and he's a young filmmaker. And the other is David Slade, who since has gone on to win an Emmy for Black Mirror Bandersnatch. But at the time, David was simply producing and directing videos for MTV. And they said, we really like this story, we'd like to option it. And so I got a 1-year option on it. That means they pay me money so that they can develop the project. That option was renewed 3 times. Charlie finally wrote the script, and then unfortunately, as these terrible things happen, unexpected things happen, Charlie passed away very young, and so he died. And And the project kind of went to rest, and David moved to LA, and he began making films in LA. His first film was Hard Candy. He reached out to me and he said, "We really want to get back to this story, Traumatic Descent. We'll eventually do it, but let me make this movie first." He made that movie. He made another movie. He made another movie, and things went on and on and on. And suddenly 2010, and we both pretty much agree this isn't going to happen. And then in 2015, Mick Garris, the producer of Showtime's Showtime's Masters of Horror, comes up with the money to make an anthology film. And he comes to David and he said, "Would you have a half-hour story that might fit into an anthology film?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I do." And it's Traumatic Descent. By this time, it was retitled This Way to Egress. And the film came out in 2019. And the segment This Way to Egress came out to rave reviews. But think of the time that went by there. That was from 1993, when the story's first written, all the way to 2019. Now, of course, in the meantime, I'm doing lots of other stuff. But that's why you have to do other stuff, because the more things you get out there, the more things you can have percolating. And since stuff's just not going to happen fast, you need to have a lot of things percolating. And then it looks like you're on fire. It looks like your career is going great. But actually, there's these long gaps between all these projects you're working on where nothing is happening. But fortunately, there's enough things out there that every now and then something pops and it makes it look like you're in the business. So I'm hoping that the listeners find that illuminating. It just takes patience, that's all. Writing is a long game.
It is. It's kind of the hurry up and wait concept. And it's the same thing, not to your extent with me. I always have different projects going, because if I could be writing a book, then I'm like, I have something else to do. At least I have 40 to 50 pages there, but I'll revisit it in 4 months once I have time to go back to it. So it's one of those things I know, and I'm hooked on your story, what you're telling me, and it's kind of a hopeful thing, because there are those out there that have these projects, and I have friends that have been working very hard on something. Sometimes the wheels, they're just spinning, they're in neutral, but there's hope at the end of the tunnel. There's light at the end of the tunnel, as they say, and I think you guys are doing a great thing. Which brings me back, talking about having your irons in different fires. I want to know if I read this right. Is there a theme music to this already?
yeah, there is. There's a couple of different bits of music for this. Back in 2008 or so, I'm a musician. I've been a musician for a long time, and this is something that I've done at the same time that I'm writing. And I have this bandmate, Dwayne Davis, and he's a terrific bass player and percussionist, and he's a great producer. And in 2008, we did a soundtrack for one of my novels. And this was just a bunch of ambient tracks, guitar music, that was written to complement my book, Veins. And when Chris and I began making these videos for Minutemen, and people can go see those videos at our newsletter at concomentertainment.substack.com. When we began making videos, I wanted to get some music in there. So it turns out that there was this one track on the Veins album that starts off kind of slow and melodious, and then suddenly, bam, 1 minute of just incredible metal rock and roll, right? And then bam, back to the slow stuff. And that 1 minute blast of power chord music seemed perfect for the Minuteman theme. So we kind of just took that on as the Minuteman theme for the videos that we've been doing for book trailers and various promotional things. But there's also a piece of music that Chris wrote the music. He wrote the lyrics for. And Chris, you want to talk to us about the origin of the song 60 Seconds to Fight?
Well, I just think it's funny. The Connolly family, you put us all in a room. I mean, we're going to just spin our gears until we come up with some creative stuff. But you leave me alone long enough with this, and I think Larry as well. We just keep adding layers and layers. And that's why, we have the young adult novel that we're working on. We have the animation stuff that we're doing. I'm working with a team in the UK. There's just a lot to this. So my brother in Hawaii, our brother in Hawaii is also a singer and he writes music and so on, and he's very talented. And I just thought we got to keep getting everyone involved. Get the Connolly brothers, keep us all moving. There's quite a few of us, so let's keep going. So I started writing down, as we're putting a narrative together, I started writing down some lyrics for what each of them do. And I thought it'd be great for the animation series. And so we've played around with that. Larry heard it. I'm not a singer, so I wrote the lyrics and I did run it through and it popped it out. And we've got this AI version that Larry could hear is not quite, hitting the marks and things. But it was enough for me to spark interest in Larry. And Larry said, got to get this in the studio. Got to do this. So we have a couple versions of it. And Larry's got one out that on our platform that is, I think it's pretty cool. And I think it would go well with the series, with the animation, with the film. And
Yeah, it's called 60 Seconds of Fight. And it's lyrics by Chris. And it's music by, I wrote the music, and then Dwayne Davis and I performed it. And people can hear it by going to our newsletter or by going to my website, lawrencecconnolly.com. And there's a music tab there. So just lawrencecconnolly.com/music. And Chris is right. There is, when Chris made the demo, he wrote the lyrics and then he generated the music using an AI program. And this is more where Chris and I are so interested, because it's fun working together, because we're oftentimes, a lot of times we're right on the same page, and other times we're on very opposite sides of an issue. And I'm just not sold on AI music. It sounds uncanny to me. It sounds wrong in some way. I just doesn't have the soul that human generated music does, at least not yet. So when I heard this, I said, these are killer lyrics. I love this. This is amazing. Let me record it. And Chris said, sure, go for it. So I got together with Dwayne, and that's the one you can hear on my website and in the newsletter. So we hope people like it. It's pretty cool.
And when I first presented to Larry, I was a little sheepish about it. I thought it was a little campy, but it was my way of introducing. I'm all about introducing these characters. And we're creating interviews of the animated versions of them. But it just, the song, it basically introduces the characters and what their abilities are at this point. And it's kind of a fun song, I think.
Yeah, and I should also point out, I mean, Chris won't say this about himself, but Chris is also a musician. And I think somewhere, Chris, we have a tape of all of us in the basement back at our old place, with you playing drums and me playing bass and John playing guitar and Mark singing. I know that there is a record. Chris used to be a really terrific. He still is. You have a drum kit there in LA? You don't, do you?
No, I had it before I left. But what I like to play now is piano. But the thing is, I always tell people the story about how we had the sound studio downstairs and probably 30 guitars and keyboards and things. Of course, for whatever reason, the drum set was upstairs in my bedroom above Dad's office. I don't know what that reason was. Eventually it moved down. But yes, I think we, and as a matter of fact, I also proudly tell the story how, when we were all young, you guys were all signed, and different day, different world, things play out differently. But we do come from a talented family, I will say that.
It seems your family has superpowers already, long-term superpowers. And touching something that Larry said earlier about there are gaps between projects, so you guys do different things. Chris, I'll start with you because I know that you've been in the entertainment industry for a very long time. Outside of Minutemen, while you're waiting for the project to come to fruition, what have you been doing?
Well, I'll tell you what, I did jump. I jumped, I sold all my businesses and properties back east, and I jumped here. I thought if this passion project is truly what I believe in, then I'm sure that your viewers, many of them have heard the expression, burn the boats. Before the Vikings would take the island, they would burn the boats. There was no retreat. So I took that principle to heart, and I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to put boots on the ground. I'm going to sell everything I got here and go to LA. For many years prior to this, I've owned a marketing, design, and print firm. But because I'm dangerous enough, if I design a building or a home, a residential or a commercial building, I built them, and then I would hold on to them, manage them. So did that. Now, what led us to the Minutemen project is there was a time after 9/11 that me and a fellow, well, we were coaching at the time in wrestling, but it's my way of giving back at that point. But he was a Marine. He was with the K9 unit. So we developed a company, BDI, Bomb Dog International. And the purpose for that after 9/11 was to go into commencement universities where commencement speakers would be speaking, or when dignitaries came into town, we would do the sweeps before any of these events. It was an interesting time. I got to meet and talk to Ryan and other Marines and things like this. And while we were coaching the young wrestlers too, I would see some of these guys with a patriotic feeling, and they would go enlist, and I would always worry about them. And this is how the story also developed, all these things coming together. And this is why I wrote this story about veterans coming home broken or trying to get their lives back, whether they're in a wheelchair or with scars that you can't even see. You can't get out of war without being affected, in my opinion.
And Larry, over to you.
Yeah, I, in addition to waiting for the book to come out and working on the newsletter, I also am working on what I hope will be the next book. And so Minutemen 2, 60 Seconds to Die, is already underway, and I'm hoping that it will be ready in time to really keep this series going. But I also have a play opening at the New Hazlet Theater in the Pittsburgh Cultural District on November 7th, and it's called Mr. Edgar A. Poe Presents Tales of Mystery, Horror, and Imagination. Very excited about it. It's the second play I've had premiere at the New Hazlet. The last one was an adaptation of Frankenstein, and so I'm looking forward to a big opening, and I hope a very successful run of the Poe play. And beyond that, just writing every day, and in trying to just trying to advance the art. That's my mission.
And I'll say too that the graphic novel is what I've been working on too. Since January 1st of this year, I'm back into this 100% working on this, and I hope, based on the novels coming out, I hope that we can also go into that other lane with the graphic novel, and I hope the viewers and readers would want to see that too.
Well, I definitely want to, because I'll get the first issue that comes out. Going back to what we said earlier. Now, we're going to close out here in a little bit. Let me talk about Edgar Allan Poe real quick, because I get to meet an author that doesn't have at least some appreciation for Edgar Allan Poe, or they're super fans of this work. If you were to pick one story that got you into feels from Edgar Allan Poe, which one would it be?
One story that, and I missed the word there, one story that does what?
That got you in your heart, in your feels, that really...
Yeah. The story, the one story of Edgar Allan Poe that really gets me. I will tell you that I think the one that was the most challenging to adapt was Murders in the Rue Morgue. And yet there is something really cool about that mystery. And that is a story that I think demands to be put on the stage. But how do you put it on the stage? Because the story takes place in so many different places. It opens up in a detective's living room, and then it moves outside, and then it moves to the place where the murder took place, and then it goes back to the detective's apartment, and it's kind of all over the place. How do you get this onto the stage? I was convinced that there's got to be a way to tell this story in real time and in one place. and let the mystery, which is really an incredible mystery. It's actually one of the very first detective stories, Murders in the Rue Morgue. And so there's got to be a way to tell this story in a way that it unravels on the stage as well as it unravels in the story on the printed page. And since I love that story so much, and I've been a great fan of that story, I worked on it and found a way to do that. And so that's going to be part of the play that opens up next month. But to answer the question more specifically, what is it about that story that really gets me? And it is the way the mystery is presented, because we have a murder that has taken place and we can't find the bodies. We begin to investigate the crime scene, and we find one of the bodies is stuffed up the chimney, evidently put there by incredible force, incredible power. Nobody has enough power to jam a human body up a chimney that way. And the other body is found outside in the courtyard. How did it get there? And people who were outside the locked room when the murder took place did not see somebody enter the room. How did somebody get inside? And how did somebody get a corpse past all those people in the hall and then deposit the body out there in the courtyard? And the people who are at the door listening, they hear a man's voice. They hear the voice of the murderer. They can all identify the voice of the murderer, but they can't agree what language he was speaking. One person thinks he was speaking Russian. Some thinks he's speaking German. Some thinks he's speaking Italian. And there's all these mystery upon mystery upon mystery. It's an incredible locked door mystery. And then when we find out how the murder was committed and who the murderer was, it's so incredibly visceral that it just really gets to the heart of what makes Poe's horror stories work so well. So I think in terms of horror and in terms of mystery, it's got to be Murders in the Rue Morgue. That is one powerful story.
How about you, Chris?
As far as his writing or my writing,
or Edgar Allan Poe, because I know you probably read it too as well. But
yeah, no, I would just, I'm always intrigued by what Larry's working on and how he will tell a story. He's amazing, to be honest with you. And if you ever get a chance to see him do a book reading, it's quite an event to see, because I watch other people do book readings and they read the book. Larry tells the story. It's that's a superhero power right there.
All right. Yeah, I like to read my stories from memory, and this is something that I'm not sure Poe presented his stories from memory, but in his time, Poe was known as a great orator and a great presenter of his stories. And we often have this image of Poe as a sickly man, a man who wasn't all together in his mental capacity. But in his prime, he could fill an auditorium for a book reading. And I really admire that. And so I think whenever an author does a book reading, that reading has got to be something special. And I had a mentor when I was teaching at the university, when I was a young man teaching at the university. And that mentor was a poet named Samuel Hazo. And he used to give poetry readings where he would recite from memory. And I used to watch him and be amazed that he could do that. And I said, when I do my readings, when I do my story readings, that's what I'm going to do. And it worked out. So, yeah, thanks for that, Chris. I guess in a way, I'm following in Poe's footsteps by trying to be a writer who gives a good book reading.
Excellent, my friends. And now, for the listeners of Bonus Overdrive Wednesday that not only want to learn more about you and your projects, but want to learn more about Minutemen Execute and Run, where can they go find out?
Yeah, well, I've mentioned it a couple times. Chris and I have a newsletter, and you can find it at Con, that's C-O-N, as in Connolly, Com, as in communication, com, entertainment.substack.com. And if you go there, you can sign up for the newsletter. There's about a dozen newsletters up there already. We come out every other week, And this is not just some run-of-the-mill newsletter. There's lots of artwork, and there's music, and there's videos. There's really cool stuff that I think people will enjoy seeing.
And there's background on other projects for other, legacy projects as such as Superman or other films that you pull in, and you have you engage people through everything else like that as well.
That's right. It's not just about the Minuteman Project. We talk about lots of other interesting things there too. And of course, people can also go to my website, and it's lawrenceconnolly.com. And Connolly, Connolly. There's no E in there anywhere. Connolly. LawrenceConnolly.com or LawrenceConnolly.com. There's a lot of stuff there. They can get my music. They can get my my blog. They can get my books. Everything is there. And I think I noticed, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I just saw today that there is an Instagram page for Minutemen. Is there?
There is one being worked on too. Yeah, we're doing that. We have threads as well, but yes, there's one we're trying to put it together. And then we also want to do the TikTok reels too.
Yeah, and Chris is working with his son, who is also an artist, a very creative individual, and they're going to be taking over TikTok. Christian is in his early 20s. He's very hip to TikTok. He's going to give us a good presence on TikTok, I think.
Yeah.
Excellent, my friends. I really appreciate both of you being on Bonus Overdrive Wednesday. And once your next project comes out, please come back. Let's talk about it, and we'll follow up with some more Minutemen because I know there's more to come.
There is. Beautiful. Thank you, Diego.
Enjoyed this, Diego. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friends.
All content on this broadcast is a property of Diego the Podcaster and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, Diego the Podcaster, or Bonus Overdrive Wednesday. The information shared on Bonus Overdrive Wednesday is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.